I contend that there are times probably in a season where a coach would be better off to just cancel practice and tell them to go sleep. This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, where we explore how to forge mental toughness and resilience in every aspect of life. Welcome, I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF certified professional coach with a background as a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director. But my journey took a dramatic turn in 2020 when I survived both cancer and a stroke. Those experiences shaped my mission to help others grow stronger in every facet of life. Today, I work with athletes, coaches, educators, and anyone who believes that positive mental health is both achievable and a personal responsibility. This podcast is dedicated to helping listeners develop a positive version of toughness, one rooted in resilience, focus, and growth. Whether you're looking to excel on the field, in the classroom, or in life, this is your space to learn, grow, and take action. Join me on this journey, and together, let's forge your mettle. Welcome to Mental Mettle Coaching, where our mission is to help you learn to thrive in the face of adversity, not just survive it. We are passionate about empowering you to live, play, and work with a resilient and spirited mindset. Hi, I'm Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF professional coach and keynote speaker. My background as an athlete, basketball coach, teacher, and school administrator has equipped me with the insights that resonate deeply with the schools, teams, athletes, and coaches I work with. However, it's my personal journey through anxiety, cancer, and an ischemic stroke in 2020 that truly brings authenticity to my presentations. While learning to speak and write again, I also pursued and earned my ICF coaching certification. Now the practices I embrace are more than theoretical concepts. They're a way of life. Developing a positive mindset is within reach for all, but it requires self-awareness and the repetition of intentional activities. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we'll guide you, your staff, and your students on this transformative journey. Together, let's forge your mettle. Good morning and welcome to the Mental Mettle Podcast. And I say good morning because it's morning for me. I just woke up and you can see if you're watching it on YouTube here what I'm wearing. I've still got my robe on, got my coffee, and I'm ready to start the day. And I'm starting the day recording an episode of the Mental Mettle Podcast. Now, why wouldn't I go ahead and get dressed and, actually start the day rather than sitting here in my robe? Well, that's because today's episode is about my monthly mettle challenge and what I'm doing this month. And I know we're a little late into the month of October, but that's okay. I didn't do one earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and keep consistent and make sure I get one done in October. But it's something I've actually been working on for a long time now, and I'm kind of ready to talk about it and kind of lead you guys through it a little bit, and that is the importance of sleep and how that is such probably it is the superpower. I think it is mentally, physically, probably one of the best things you can do for yourself for increasing your physical ability and your mental ability. And I really want to dive into this. It's a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And it's interesting because, I've been doing the Monthly Mettle Challenge and been doing a lot of things that are like, I've done gratitude, in which I had to go actively write some letters and talk to people and show gratitude. And then the faith, working on my faith and making sure that I read the Bible every day and do more prayer, and then doing some yoga and some visualization and some breathing and meditation and all this stuff. And that takes time and effort, and it's a very active process to be able to do, in addition to doing the things that I always do that are good for my mental health, like exercising and continuing to my jiu-jitsu and things like that. Very active things. And sleep is the opposite of that. It's a very passive thing. And it's a weird thing to think that one of the best things that I can do for myself mentally and physically is to do nothing, and literally do nothing, as in like go sleep and shut my mind and my brain off for hours on end. And that's it's an interesting idea how useful that can be, because I think a lot of times if we're in today's busy world of 24-hour access to everything and jobs that just don't seem to end and schedules that are so busy, it's like I don't have time to sleep, and if I'm sleeping, I'm not getting things done that I need to do. And I'm going to do my best today to prove two things. One, that needs to be more of a priority, and kind of the idea, number two here, the idea that not doing anything and sleeping is actually, and making sure, and let's put that in there, making sure that you get a full 7 to 8 hours of sleep is pretty much, for a lot of people, adults with kids and things like this, it's a very massive undertaking to make that happen. To be able to say, I'm going to get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep on a regular schedule and make this happen. That is not an easy thing to get done. That is a very active thing, and you have to be very intentional with it. And it's hard. It's facing adversity. It's making choices. It's deciding these things just to be able to make sure that you get some sleep. And that's the point I'm going to make, is one, that you should do this. This is very important for you. And two, it's not as easy as you think. And that's actually a good thing. Like, I want you to see it that way, that like, this is hard. I'm going to have to work on this to be able to do it, because it's worth it. I think sometimes in our minds, if we make that switch, it helps. And plus, I think that, we have to get over the old idea that that's just being lazy, is sleeping, and, that old, I'll get all the sleep I need when I'm dead mantra, which is, trying to be tough and saying all this. And it's just not, it's not useful. It's not helpful. Basically, almost every ailment we can imagine, physical and mental, is made worse by lack of sleep. And people do it all the time. People get less than 8 hours or less than 7 hours. Let's kind of like that. Let's make that for the normal human adult, and we'll talk about some variables on that a little bit. But let's say that 7 to 8 hours is kind of what we're looking for. A lot of studies to show this. Plus, the idea that it's the 8 hours of sleep is kind of what we need is kind of like, since the dawn of time, kind of shown like that's just what people did when they didn't have alarm clocks, when they didn't have electricity, and they would just go sleep, in darkness. Found out that, 7 to 8 hours is kind of what people would do. Sun would go down, there's nothing to light, no light, and they would just go to sleep, and they'd wake up like 7 to 8 hours later, just because that's what our bodies need. So there's a lot of biology behind that. Even though, the world has changed with, again, the 24-hour access, phones, TVs, Zoom calls at all hours, like all that has changed, but our biology is not. So, but people probably, you'll run into people all the time talking about how, I only need 6 or I only need 5. And I mean, there are a few people that have a gene that can help them do that, but it's really small. It's like less than 10%, something like 5% or something like that. But I've found that the number of people that think they can do that is well above that. Just a lot of people think, oh, I don't need it. And that quite honestly, they're wrong. And it's not you can do it for a short time. A lot of these effects from lack of sleep are very cumulative. And that is something, it's anecdotal, but I'll tell my story a little bit. So back in 20, I've never been an easy sleeper. I'm an overthinker, something I have to work on really hard. And overthinkers, if you're an overthinker, you know that sleep is a really rough time, or trying to sleep is a rough time. Going into bed and doing a lot of ruminating is what the psychologists talk about it. And ruminating is thinking about all the mistakes you made, the worries and things like that. It doesn't help sleep. So I was in the middle of, so I've always been, again, not an easy sleeper, but then in 2020 when I had testicular cancer and had to do scans, and then you're worried about, if it's going to spread, what kind of mistakes you've made, and how I didn't take care of it like I should have earlier, and a lot of guilt about the past, a lot of worry about the future. and in the middle of COVID, right? So I'm coming back to work after having a surgery, and I'm an athletic director, and there's no athletics to direct, and that meant that, my own kids, my daughter was at college her first year, great first year, to have that be COVID, and trying to play basketball and not, because it was being shut down. And then my son was going into his junior year in high school, and that was going to be a big year for him. He had a lot of expectations that year, and they're not even getting to play. So that, that works on you as a dad, but then also as an athletic director, I know the importance of athletics as much as anybody, and the fact that we're not doing it during COVID was worrisome to me. And then what was really a trouble is that I would get the fault for that. Like people would yell at me because I had to be the one to be the messenger. And in COVID, people didn't care about whether or not they shot the messenger at all. They were just upset. So I got a lot of the ire about that. I got called a lot of things for not having sports, and it was nothing we could have done. They shut it down. There was nobody to play. There was nothing to do. Like, no, you couldn't have done anything if you wanted to. But so anyway, it caused a lot of stress on me, a lot of anxiety, and it ended up, I would say, in October and November of 2020, I just my sleep habits were that I didn't much. A normal evening would be going to bed. Dana, my wife, is a pretty easy sleeper, so she would fall asleep, 9:00, something like that. And then I would not want to wake her, so I would just lay in bed, and it was very common for me to just stare at the ceiling for 3 or 4 hours and try to sleep and couldn't, toss and turn. Maybe get an hour, go through one 90-minute sleep cycle. Sleep cycles are about 90 minutes. And then wake up, 1:30 in the morning, couldn't sleep, go watch TV for a couple hours, come back, maybe get another hour and a half sleep cycle in before I woke up. So it was very common for me to only get about 3 hours of sleep. And that slowly progressed into being the norm. And that's not okay. So those cumulative effects started building up. And that happened in October. That happened then on November. It kept worse and worse into December. And December 13th was exactly when I had my ischemic stroke. Now, there's I didn't know this at the time. I knew that that was not enough sleep, and I was trying to do it, but I wasn't. It was weird. I was upset that I wasn't getting enough sleep. I knew it wasn't enough sleep, but all that did was cause more anxiety about not sleeping. And that happens. They call it a feedback loop. So your stress and cortisol go up because you're not sleeping, and then you get stressed about not sleeping, and that more stress means that you can't sleep as much, and the cortisol continues to grow, and it just makes it again, it's a feedback loop, and I 100% experienced that. And so I didn't do the numbers. They tested me after my stroke, of course, and the cortisol was off the charts, and it was after the cancer too. So it's real, and that feedback loop and lack of sleep was making it worse. So, and the research bears that out. A lot of research that, and there's one of the piece of research that I found that when I was trying to figure out what caused my stroke and just some different things, anybody that sleeps less than 5 or 6 hours a night was increased 29% increase in experiencing a stroke. Well, ultimately I had a hole in my heart that can cause a stroke, but again, I was 45 years old and it had never caused a problem at that point. Well, you take that one precondition, and then you're only sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night and then that's what happens. And then you take a preconditioned situation and you add no sleep to it, and then that pre-existing condition becomes a factor. And so it's not it's multiple things, but lack of sleep makes everything worse. And it's not just stroke. That was my anecdotal. Well, it's not even anecdotal. I got the research there, but that was my anecdote backed up by research. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness, using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Mettle Coaching. But there's so many other things that sleep makes worse. Basically, almost every ailment you can imagine. So the American Heart Association says that people that sleep less than 6 hours a night have a 20% increase in heart attack chance. Obesity, the American Heart Association, people that sleep fewer than 7 hours a night, more likely to have a higher BMI and develop obesity. It's also connected to type 2 diabetes. There's just like everything you can imagine. Okay? Your body needs to heal and it needs sleep to do that. All down to the point that they can just do an all-cause mortality. So just like your increase in chance of death just goes up the less you sleep, which is funny because, not funny, but you know what I mean. Like the idea of, I'll get all the sleep I need when I'm dead. Well, that sort of an idea and having that mantra is going to increase the chance that you are going to get that sleep when you die, because it's coming sooner rather than later. And it's there. Like anybody that gets one study I saw said less than 7 hours a night, it's a 12 to 17% increase in all-cause mortality. So whatever it causes, like it causes something else, but all put together, something 12 to 17% increase if you're just getting less than 7 hours of sleep. Now, there's also studies out there that, there's also studies out there that if you're sleeping more than 9 or so, that is an indicator of all-cause mortality going up. But I think that's more of, somebody's sleeping over 9 hours a night. That's indicative of they've got some other issue. But anyway, it's a U-shaped curve idea. But regardless, that point is, for the normal average adult, your goal should be somewhere between 7 to 8 hours. That's the research bears that out, that's good. Now there's some athletic findings that show 8 hours a night. More than that is actually good, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. But also, in addition to that, it's implied that 7 to 8 hours is continuous and not interrupted. So irregular sleep patterns, stuff caused by sleep apnea and stress, whenever you're not, each of those 90-minute cycles, you're waking up, okay? That increases all-cause mortality somewhere between 20 and 48%. So it's not just 7 to 8 hours of sleep, it's the continuous. And there's a lot of reasons for that, just in how it helps our body. And it's when we sleep, and the reasons on how that happens is there's so much positive in your body happening while you sleep. This is where your cells repair. This is where your regulatory system's kind of like retuned and restarted. So it really helps our cells grow and help our cells transport energy, and it increases the immune system. Helps us pick up those inflammation markers that helps our body figure out what's wrong and it needs to fix it. It helps metabolic health. That's the connection there between obesity. If we sleep enough, we're getting it increases our metabolism and helps us function properly. There's so many things, and it helps us slow down any chronic disease we have. It really helps us. All these things, from the heart to the muscles to the bowels, all these things are so helped by the proper amount of sleep. Okay. And again, you can look at that positive, or you can use a negative. Like if we're like not getting enough sleep, it causes all sorts of ailments. If I am getting the right amount of sleep, it means I'm healthy. But either way you want to look at it, that 7-8 hours is what we're looking at. Then there's like some other physical things. If I've got coaches listening to me, this is a great time for me to bring this up. If a coach is listening to me and you're a coach of a sport, the amount of sleep your athletes need, if they're in high school or in college or even junior high, younger people need a little bit more. And we really underestimate how important sleep is for performance in a sport. My favorite new study is the Stanford men's basketball team. This is just amazing. So here's the study and how they did it. They took 11 Stanford men's varsity basketball players, okay? So these guys are, again, averaged around 19 years old. So these are younger. So they need a little bit more sleep, plus they're being very active. And they tracked their normal sleep, and they were averaging somewhere between 6 hours and 45 minutes. And that's what they were coming in. They were measuring it. They did a sleep study on these guys. So they're getting less than 7 hours a night. And these are full functioning athletes and doing school and stuff like that. And the intervention they did was, they said for 5 to 7 weeks, they kind of changed their schedule. So the coaches had to be in on this. The university had to be in on this, and they allowed these guys 10 hours every night to just sleep. And that's not easy to do. And what happened was all these guys averaged around 8.5 hours of sleep. So they went from 6 hours, average 6 hours and 45 minutes to 8.5 hours a night. Okay. So that's getting into that window. That 7 to 8 hour window, they were under it, and now they're above it. And the difference they found was everything. So everything went up. Shooting accuracy, sprint speed, reaction time, mood, all that stuff went up. And they could track those things. So what they noticed was the entire team's free throw percentage increased by 9%. The 3-point percentage increased by 9.2%. If you follow basketball at all, that's enormous. A 9% increase. I mean, the average free throws in a game in college is probably somewhere around, 70 to 80%, somewhere there. So a 9% increase is huge. And 3-point percentage is, a really good free throw or 3-point shooter is like 43%, somewhere in there. So increasing 9% is enormous, absolutely enormous. All they did was, again, did nothing. They just went and slept. Their speed increased, their foot sprint times went up, their reaction went up, and overall their well-being, they reported feeling better physically and mentally during practices and games, which that's hard to put a measure on, but it's real. That is, and all they did was sleep. So my point there for coaches a lot of times is, these coaches that run these super long practices, we got to run 3-hour practices because we got to get all this done, and knowing that kids have, other things in their lives, like their schoolwork and relationships and family and stuff like this, but saying it doesn't matter, we got to get these practices in. and not accounting for them and making sure that they have enough sleep. I contend that there are times probably in a season where a coach would be better off to just cancel practice and tell them to go sleep. Now, listen, I understand the idea that you can tell a kid to go sleep, but they might go on their phone or watch TV and not sleep like they should. But that's all part of what you support and what you encourage and what you push and explaining to them, because most kids, the good athletes, that they want to win, and if they know that this really helps, it needs to be something that you push and you promote. There's other studies as well. They did one. They've done it with swimmers and they've done it with runners, and they do all sorts of stuff. And they find that kids and athletes not getting enough sleep it's a pretty trackable piece of information, right? Like, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not performing well. And if you are getting enough sleep, you are performing at full potential. And it's really clear. And I love that it works for basketball because it also works for everybody. Even if you're not doing a sport, this is the Mental Mettle Podcast. It does help the mental side, not just for athletes, but for us as adults. Anytime we're getting enough sleep, and for us, it's that 7 to 8 hour window. If you're getting enough sleep, it really decreases that mental distress and really helps. It decreases the chance of depression. It increases cognitive function and prevents impairment. So all these things, it increases your motivation, your goal-directed behavior, all these things. And some of these are hard to quantify, but they've done a lot of studies to show that basically everything you can think of on mental health and mental acuity and just reaching goals and striving for goals and your overall mood and all these things are just unbelievably increased by you just getting enough sleep. Okay. There's just so much out there, and you can find your own, but it's really clear. And the idea, what we have to get past is the idea of I'm too busy. And it's really not that important. Our sleep falls well down on our priority list. And I think that's what needs to change. So whenever we talk about being able to change some of this stuff, I think that's the two ideas. I think one, we have to move our need for sleep higher up on our priority list. And two, we need to take an active role in actually increasing our sleep. And that is not easy. Both of those are really hard to do. So again, it may feel like sleep itself, it's not adversity. But, because I'm all about facing adversity and doing things hard, right? So sleep feels the opposite of that. But understand that changing your schedule and your priorities, that's hard, especially in today's busy electric world. Creating an environment and a schedule that prioritize sleep is not easy. And if you struggle to get that 7 to 8 hours a night, I want you to think a moment. Like if you're one of these overthinkers like me, or you're just a busy parent or a busy coach with a lot going on, think for a moment what it would take for you to say, I am going to make a plan and implement this plan and make sure it happens so that I guarantee that I get 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep for this entire week. How possible do you think that is? And how difficult do you think that is for you? And how hard would that be? And most of you, when you're thinking about this, if you're looking at it that way, you know how difficult that was. That would have been just inconceivable for me when I was really struggling, just because I wanted to do it, but I couldn't do it. And that's what I mean about this being adversity. It's hard. You have to work on it. You have to do something on purpose, because even if you manage to say, I'm going to go into my busy calendar and I'm going to block 8 hours every night and say, I'm going to sleep these 8 hours, you still have to make some serious habit changes to make sure that you actually sleep for those full 8 hours. Like just putting it on your calendar does not do it, right? It takes a lot. So I'm going to give you some ideas on how, and you've probably heard some of these, but I want you to start thinking about some ways that you can adjust your schedule and your mindset to be able to help you get that sleep. First of all, stick to a sleep schedule. This is probably one of the hardest things for busy adults. The way that sleep works, and the way it works best, is if you go to bed at night at the same time and wake up every day, even on weekends, right? So that's hard to do, because a lot of times our schedules are dictated for us. There's games, there's all these things, but you have to at least do your best. And I think a lot of times our schedules, like I said, get dictated for us. Like we have a game late, so we can't go to bed at the same time. But I think that we also don't do a good job on our own in prioritizing that schedule when we have the opportunity. So that means maybe you're not doing something else, or not playing on your phone, not watching TV, not doing something else. You're actually prioritizing sleep over these things that you kind of become addicted to. All right. So that's number one. You actually have to create a bedtime routine, right? Doing something to kind of start to get that melatonin increasing, and just being prepared for bedtime, doing more relaxing activities. Again, the phone and scrolling is not a good activity right before bed. Reading a book or doing some meditation, those are. All right, we're getting our brain to kind of go to sleep a little bit, and that takes a little bit. You have to work on it. And a lot of the stuff I've worked with about, just doing some yoga, some meditation, some stuff, they tie into this idea of sleep. And then, of course, you have to optimize your sleep environment. So it has to be, you got to keep it cool. You got to keep it dark. You got to keep it quiet. All these things help. Just the more light we have, if it's warm, all these things that could possibly interrupt your sleep, you want to kind of get out of it. I'm going to be honest right now. I've done really good at trying to do this. My biggest struggle right now is my son. My son's not my son. He's in college, but that's part of the problem. My son, kind of prompted us to get a puppy, and he got us so we've got a cane corso. And if you know what a cane corso is, he's a puppy. But right now he's 9 months old, getting on 10 months old, and a 10-month-old cane corso puppy weighs about 90 pounds, but still acts like a puppy. So he loves to, in the middle of the night, he gets lonely, so he jumps up on top of me, trying to sleep on my bed, and sometimes I kick him off, but sometimes I'm just too tired. But that's my struggle right now, is getting this dog to leave me alone so I can sleep, but that affects things. So I know it's cute and it's funny and all that, but we have to try to figure out ways to figure that out, because it's our responsibility to try and get enough sleep. Are you ready to take on the toughest opponent you've ever faced? Yourself. At Mental Mettle Coaching, I work with athletes, coaches, and professionals who are up for a challenge and ready to grow. Through individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses, we'll help you build confidence, resilience, and a mindset that seeks growth. If you're serious about becoming your best, let's get started. Check out the show notes for my contact information, and together, let's forge your mettle. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. Yeah, and then in addition to that, another idea is watching your diet. Your diet really affects your sleep. When you eat, eating those large meals before bed, caffeine or alcohol close to bedtime, right? These things can impact your sleep. And that, there you go. It's a priority, right? Well, I haven't eaten enough. I need to eat more. Or, yeah, well, I like a coffee because I'm, before, or I want to drink or whatever. Okay, you can do those things, but know that it might affect your sleep. And when you affect your sleep, you affect your physical performance and your mental performance. So it has to be a choice. That's where the adversity comes in. It seems like it's not adversity, but actually pushing yourself to make a decision to do this or not do this so that I sleep is not easy to do. It takes effort. And just keep in mind that also getting regular exercise. It sure helps at night to get some sleep if you've done some regular physical activity, right? So if you are staying active and working out, these things help you sleep. So really help. If you are that overthinker, you need to start doing some things that reduce the stress. All right, you need to, because again, that feedback loop is real. That if your stress is real and noticeable and you don't manage it, it can. One of the things I used to say is like I would be negative and be stressed about having my stress. So I was feeling negative about being negative or feeling stress about having stress, and those just feed themselves. And it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. So you have to find a way to break that cycle and get in front of it. So that's really hard to do, but you need to do it. And then, of course, listen, if you start to struggle, and there are some sleep aids, you can get professional help. You can do a sleep study, but in talk to my doctor, and because I've struggled with this a lot, that some of the things that you may or may not want to do, or these studies you want to do, or any supplement you may want to take or not take, you have to do it carefully and talk to a doctor, talk to a professional about it. But know that some of these things that you may not want to do, that goes for everything we did. The benefit of you being able to get more sleep is worth it. Okay, it's a huge benefit in your life, in your mood, your physical ability, your mental ability to get the consistent, adequate amount of sleep. It needs to be more of a priority. On sleep, another interesting idea is when we talk about taking naps. And I know that it really is, now we're getting into, this is hard to do for a lot of people, but if you're able to it. So a nap, first of all, know that a nap is something like 20 to 30 minutes, right? So a 30-minute nap, like after lunchtime, if possible, you don't want to do more than that because then you're getting into not being able to sleep at night. We don't want that. But a nap during the day, the amount of study that they've shown like that is, the old idea of a siesta after lunch. There's a lot of mental, physical benefits there. And it boosts your mood, increases alertness, improves cognitive function, reduces your fatigue, decreases stress. All these things really help if you want this, and there's a lot of studies out there showing that people that nap regularly, just again for that 30 minutes or so, actually live longer. So it's that all-cause mortality helping it a little bit. I'll be honest, I have a job right now that allows me to do that. And well, let's be honest. After you have a stroke that is very, how do I put it? Very strongly connected to not getting enough sleep, that's kind of enough of a come to Jesus moment for you to change some things. So I've changed a lot of things. I've changed a lot of things on how I sleep, how I prioritize sleep. It's a big deal for me now. I want to get to sleep. I want to get my sleep, and I sleep a lot different than I ever did before. I used to be like, I got to be a 5 a.m. club guy. I have to get up at 5 a.m. regardless or not. Well, I don't always do that now, right? I used to always say I had to get up at 5 a.m. to get my workout in and do these things. Well, I don't necessarily do that now. I get my workouts in, I do my things, but if that getting up at 5 a.m. to get a workout is getting in the way of me getting adequate sleep, I choose sleep. Now that means I got to make choices throughout the day on what I do have time to do and what I don't have time to do, but I try to make sure that adequate sleep is a high enough priority. And what I found is, again, by getting enough sleep at night, and also maybe, it's not every day, but when I do get a nap in the afternoon, the amount of effectiveness I see in my job is so much better. I think clearly, I write clearly, I speak clearly. Whenever I don't, and this is, again, after having a stroke, this is something that I notice more than before. If I don't get adequate sleep, my stroke hit me in the speech centers, which means that speaking and writing was really hard for me a while, and it's still something I have to work on. So that cognitive impairment that you can see from not having enough sleep, I think it shows up faster in me and more easily in me. So if I don't have enough sleep, I start to notice it. I fumble for words. I don't write as clearly. I notice a huge difference when I've had enough sleep and when I have not. It's the same when I decide or choose to take a 30-minute nap in the afternoon. The amount of cognitive function and how that increases when I take that nap is, again, it is hard to measure, but I know it's there. Quite often, if I spend the day writing, coaching, doing things, or especially when I'm being creative. So when I'm creating writing or a PowerPoint presentation in the morning, which I do a lot, and then I take my nap in the afternoon, I get a lot of clarity because it's something that's been in my brain I'm thinking about, and I get a lot of clarity around the idea when I have that 30-minute nap, and I find it to be unbelievably helpful for my creativity, my cognitive function, all these things. I am a much more efficient, clear, purpose-driven individual when I have adequate sleep. And again, that might feel anecdotal given my situation, but all of the research backs it up. Everything we do, every mental thing, every physical thing we want to do is increased by having adequate sleep, and everything we do mentally and physically is hindered by not having enough sleep. It is that 7 to 8 hour window is what you got to have. You have to strive for. You have to be pretty diligent about it. It's not easy. It is really not. It is not a minor undertaking. Choosing sleep might seem really passive, as I mentioned, until you actually say, I'm going to get 7-8 hours of sleep, and then execute that plan and make it happen. It might be one of the most intentional and difficult things that I've ever mentioned on this monthly metal challenge. It seems simple. It seems minor. It is not. It is one of the most important things I can imagine and talk about, and it is also one of the hardest to do it. It's really going to help you in every aspect of your life to be able to do that. You just cannot function at your best without having adequate sleep. And that's going to be my challenge to you. There's a lot of ways you can track that. If you have one of these watches, my wife, my son are just, they love them. My son does the Whoop, my wife does the Aura ring, and they track it. I don't do one. I don't care for them. I don't like having information is power. A lot of people like it, and usually I'm an information is power guy. I found when I tried those, anytime that I wouldn't get enough sleep or something, it would show that I was up too much or not getting enough. That triggered that negative feedback loop for me. Like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep tonight. I really got to make sure I get enough sleep tonight. And then I would be worried about it, not get enough sleep. So I'm one of these people, and I heard a podcast about Whoop that talked about that there are people like that. I'm one of those people that it almost does me better to not have the information because I'm an overthinker. I'm a ruminator, and it does me better to just forget about that, what happened last night, and just focus on what I want tonight and know that it'll just happen. And that helps me. But you may not be that person. You may want to really focus on your numbers, and you can do that. And if you think that helps you, then do it. But my goal for you is more, not as much about getting a watch and doing all that, but making a intentional plan to get the adequate sleep that you need, knowing that it's going to help you mentally and physically, and prioritize that. So put a plan together, try it, and then anytime that we put a plan together, you have to be recognizing the growth that you see in it. So put the plan together, see if you can try to get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but then also notice how you feel and how it's helping you. Because if you don't recognize that growth, you're probably not going to stick to the plan. If you do recognize the plan and notice that, man, I'm feeling better, I'm acting better, I'm thinking clearly, you're going to be more likely to stick with that plan. So make a plan, work on it, know that it's a process to get there, and then look at the growth you've had and notice it, recognize it, and then that is how we adapt, changes into our life, is because we try it, we see the growth, and we keep at it. So this is not an easy undertaking. I know there's a ton of hurdles, and I know that there's a lot of things and a lot of busy schedules going to make this hard, but you need to do your best to try to make this a priority, and also give yourself a break and not say that means sleeping means I'm not getting things done, because quite honestly, if you're not getting adequate sleep, then the things you are getting done, you're doing them much less than 100% potential. So that's the plan. Work on your sleep, make a plan, do it, and know that it's a superpower. So thank you so much for those that listen to this. I appreciate everybody that listens and leans into this and just bothers to listen to me. I just so happy with the results of the podcast and the people that listen and the feedback that I get. So thank you so much for listening. But we're out of time. So this has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and always remember to forge your metal. Thanks for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast. Don't forget to tune in every week for more insights and strategies to help you forge mental toughness and resilience. This podcast is brought to you by Mental Mettle Coaching, where we are driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that empowers others to play, live, and grow with confidence. Our mission is to instill a resilient and spirited mindset in our clients, enabling them to confidently face adversity and actively seek new challenges for personal growth. At Mental Mettle Coaching, we offer individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses. Whether you're an athlete, educator, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential and thrive in every area of life. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and always remember to forge your mettle.